Weird lighting in here. Okay, so what I want to do at this point is finish off what I started on Thursday and carry on with that. Okay, and we're going to look at something called inequalities. So something that isn't equal, expressions, equations that aren't equal. Okay, so everything that we've looked at to date, the left-hand side has equaled the right-hand side. Okay, so that's been very important, especially when we're working out and we're moving things across. Okay, inequalities are very, very similar in their setup. Okay, but we use different signs just to signify different things. Okay, so instead of an equal sign, you'll see a different symbol. Okay, so just going through these symbols, and then we'll start putting numbers to it and start looking at what these symbols mean. Okay, so I'll share on the screen. Okay, hopefully you can see that. Okay, so looking at inequalities. Okay, so inequalities. Okay, so inequalities. The following symbols are the ones that we use. Okay, and these are just the meanings of them. Okay, and mostly it's going to be a triangle like that. Okay, and it's going to point in different directions. So if a triangle is pointing from left to right, okay, the point is going towards the right, okay, it means the number is greater than. Or you can say more than. Okay, so remember that symbol's been used in place of an equals. Okay, so that means the number on the left-hand side is going to be greater than the number on the right-hand side. Okay, so something that would be true in that case is 10 is greater than 5. Okay, so that's essentially that we could use that symbol to represent that. That's what that is telling me. Okay, in mathematical terms, 10 is greater than 5. Okay, now in algebraic terms, we're obviously going to use a wee letter in there. Okay, so I could put something like 2x is greater than 7. Okay, that's the type of thing we're looking at. Okay, so 2 x's. Okay, remember x is just a variable. It's just a letter that we use in that place. It's just positioned there. Okay, so 2 times whatever x is greater than the number 7. Okay. The flip side of that, we can point an arrow in a different direction, and we can say that is less than. Okay, and we can an equation that would work with that, just 5 is less than 10. Okay, so we've just flipped that round. Okay, but that's what that's telling me. Okay, and you can write it something like 3x is less than 7. Okay, that's telling me, that's what that's saying to me. Okay. Now, important signs, very similar to the ones above. Okay, you can use the greater than sign, put a wee line underneath that. Okay, and that just tells me it's greater than or equal to. Okay, and that will make more sense when we start using these formulas for something. Okay, so remember x, if we're using it on a normal graph, x can change. So as when we're going along the x-axis, x can be whatever scale you use. So x can be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, what that's telling me is the solution is going to be below, or sorry, it's going to be above a certain number. It's going to be greater than a certain number. Okay, so it's telling me it's greater than or equal to. Okay, so it could be whatever. Okay, So we're going to be left with something resembling greater than or equal to 5 or whatever, okay? It's just in place of an equal sign. And you probably guess what the next one is. Less than or equal to. Okay, so when we rearrange these linear equations, okay, which we're going to do, okay, so there's just going to have an x without to the power of 1. Okay, when we rearrange these linear equations, it's going to tell us something if we were to draw that graph out about our solution. Okay, so there's meaning behind why we're doing this. Okay, so it's going to give us greater than or equal to. Okay. So to solve these equations, we use the exact same rules to rearrange them, okay, as we were using for when it was an equal sign. Okay, so everything we did last Thursday when we were rearranging equations, okay, even down to the fractions, we use the same rules. So when it's add, okay, or a positive number on the left-hand side, we can take that over and create a negative. When it's a negative, we can create a positive. Multiple becomes a divide, divide becomes a multiple, squared number becomes a root. Okay, so the rules are still the same. That's very, very important. There's only one thing here that's going to trip you up. Okay, so we're using the exact same rules, unless if you're dividing by a negative, then you need to flip the sign round. Okay, and we'll do plenty of examples and we'll try and make sense of that. Okay, so just take a wee note of that. If dividing by a negative, you need to flip the sign in the middle. Okay, so we think back to a couple of examples we were doing when it was an equal sign. We were taking a negative from left-hand side, taking it over to the right-hand side. Okay, a negative multiply, we were taking it over to the right-hand side, and it was a negative divide. In fact, did we do it last time? Here. Okay, so we were taking that -4 there, and we were taking it to the other side. Okay, that's what I mean by dividing by a negative on the opposite side. So if that symbol in here, okay, was a greater than sign or a less than sign, would flip it when we take that -4. And it's the only time we do that is when we take it from a negative. Okay, so if it was a +4 and we were taking that across, that sign would stay the same, stay greater than. Okay, so let's play around with that, see what it takes us. Okay. So we'll do a couple of those negative dividings shortly. Let's start with something, a format we're familiar with from last week. Okay. So let me just see what the exam says. Okay. So we'll just say solve an equation in the exam, it won't give you anything else. Okay, so all we'll ask you in the exam, we solve an equation. Okay, and you'll get given a format like this. Okay, so 4x plus 9 is greater than 2x plus 25. When it's saying solve an equation, we want all the x's on the left-hand side, and we want all the numbers, all the whole numbers on the right-hand side. Okay, so it's the same process. Okay, so let's just work through that. I'm going to move all the x's first. Okay, so I want to take that 2x across. That 2x is positive on the right-hand side, so it becomes a negative on the left. Pardon me. Okay, likewise, I want to take that 9, move it over to the other side. That greater than sign stays the same. Okay, so we're not dividing by a negative, so it stays the same. Taking that 9 over to the other side, 25, -9. Okay, so that sign is changing, it's positive. On the left-hand side becomes a negative. And then it's just a simple case of solving that through. 4x minus 2x is going to give us 2x. The greater than sign stays the same, doesn't change. 25 minus 9 is 16. Okay. We want to leave x on its own. So we want to take this 2 and remove it over here. It's a multiple on the left-hand side, so it becomes a divide on the right. X will be greater than 8. So our solution will have something, a number for x that's greater than 8. Anything below 8 won't be right. Okay, that's what that's telling us. Okay, all the way through that, because we were never dividing by a negative, that greater than sign stayed the same. Okay, 6x 20. Okay, 6x plus 20 is less than or equal to 2x plus 4. Okay, same process. 2x across, 20 across. They're both positive. Switch the sides, both become negative. Nothing happens to the sign in the middle. Okay. This being negative doesn't affect it. Okay, that wee negative in there doesn't affect it because we're not changing the sign, we're not dividing it only when you divide by a negative. That x stays what it is. Makes
Sorry, you could go back up to the top one. I just missed that wee one there.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Is that big enough on your screen?
Yep, that's perfect.
Give me 2 seconds. Okay, so don't be scared when you see those symbols. Okay, inequalities we're just dealing with them the same way as when we had balanced sides. Okay. Okay, so next example, we okay? Copied that? Give me a shout if you know.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, thanks.
Cheers. Okay, 3. Okay. Just do a very simple one, minus 3x greater than 21. Okay, so if we had something as simple as that, we want to leave x on its own, so we're taking that minus 3 across to the other side. Okay, and this is an example of when we're dividing by a negative. Okay, so when we leave that x, that symbol would flip. It would be 21 over minus 3. Okay. That symbol, so x is greater than, becomes x is less than. Okay, so that's what I mean by flipping the symbol. Okay, so negative 3x is greater than 21, but x, positive x, is less than negative 7. right? So it's sometimes quite a difficult one to think about. But that's what I'm essentially saying when I'm saying change that sign. Okay. Likewise, whatever way that arrow's pointing, it's always the same. Okay. Slightly more complicated then. 4x minus 25 greater than or equal to 7x minus 7. Okay. Want to move the x's over to the one side, it's 4x minus 7x. Okay, positive on the right hand side becomes negative. Minus 7 plus 25. Okay, you could write that 25 minus 7 as well, but because it's already on the right hand side, I'll put that number first. Okay. Happy with that? So that becomes negative 3x. Okay. Greater than or equal to, what's that, 18? Okay. We've got a negative on the left hand side. Want to take that across. Okay. That symbol in the middle flips. Okay, that symbol flips because we're taking that negative and we're dividing by that negative 3. Okay, so I've done that. X is now less than or equal to minus 6. Okay, let's have a wee look. Okay, so in that booklet, we are on page 14. Okay, so page 14 in the booklet in the middle. Okay, and we're looking from question 9. Hopefully it should be nice and simple, so we're just putting it either side. Nothing changes there. Nothing changes in 10. 11, we're starting to take things over and divide by. Okay, so 2x greater than 6 becomes x greater than 6 over 2, or x is greater than 3. Okay, so nice and simple, no negatives. No negatives. No negatives. No negatives. Don't really give much trouble. Okay, here we go. 6x, that stays positive. There we go, there's a negative 1 there. 15. Ignore the intro to that. Okay. I'll go through with that. It's talking about at a later date. Okay. So ignore the intro to that, just rearrange them. Okay, they've introduced a couple of brackets there. Okay, so essentially we're dealing with those brackets the same way as we did when we were doing the equations last week. Okay, remember we want to take away everything outside that bracket, move it over to the one side. Okay, and then we deal with that expression inside that bracket. Okay, so let me do D. It's nice and easy. Okay, so I'll just do 15D very quickly, just so you understand what I was saying now. Okay, so 15D is 2, 6. Okay, so 15D in the booklet is 2, you've got a bracket, okay? Remember, we can't do anything with that bracket, okay? We can't move that across until we deal with everything outside it, okay? So if there's something added on to that, or if there's something multiplied, which is the case in this one, okay? Or if there's even a power on that bracket, we can't do anything with it inside of that bracket until we clear everything else out. Okay, so you need to clear all the way the noise. Okay, so the first thing we want to do here is move that 2 across. Okay. So write it like that. Okay. Because there's nothing now outside that bracket, the bracket's meaningless. It doesn't need to be there. Okay. So we could essentially take that bracket away and it just disappears. Okay. Now, if we brought that 2 back across, we'd have to put that bracket back on. Okay. But because there's nothing outside that bracket, there's nothing to multiply or add or to the power of, we can remove that bracket and that makes sense. Okay. So I can also break that fraction apart over there and write it like that as well. Remember, we did that earlier tonight, okay, when we were solving one of the past paper questions, okay, in that handout. So I can write that fraction like that. So if I just tidy that up, that just becomes 4x plus 6. And that's now in a format that we're sort of familiar with, and we can start moving things about. Okay. So moving that x over to the other side, over to the left-hand side, moving the whole number over to the right. Okay, we've got 5x minus 4x less than 6. When we move that across, it becomes negative. Okay. X, it's just going to be less than 0. Okay, don't be scared of a 0. Okay, we use negatives all the time. That's all that's saying. It's just a negative number, so x has to be a negative number. Okay, but that's how you deal with brackets. Don't be scared with brackets. Just remember, we need to clear everything outside it, move it across, and then sort of tidy it up that other side. Okay. So 15 is a good question to have a wee go at actually then. Okay, because it deals with brackets and puts brackets, and you've seen when I pulled up that handout, brackets come up. Okay, so that's a good wee one to go for. Okay, if you're not too sure and you want to ease yourself in, okay, starts very nicely at question 9, okay, in page 14, okay, and then works its way up. Okay, 15, 16 is where I'd sort of want you to be at. Okay, so let's look at 16. A wee bit harder because you'll be left with a fraction. Okay, 7/2, you obviously can't simplify, so when you take that across, you'll just need to sort of deal with that. But that's when we dealt with fractions earlier tonight, started, that's the same process. Okay, so just because there's a greater than or equal to sign, nothing changes in that. Okay, so when you take that 2 across, that becomes 7/2p. Okay, minus 9. So when you bring it all together, you just need to deal with fractions like we were doing earlier today. Okay. Solve each of the inequalities. It's more of the same. Okay, so 15, 16, and 17 would be good questions to sort of have a bash at, or sort of test your skills. There's nothing that we've not done, especially last week. We were having a go at them. Okay, so try a few of them. If you're not getting them or you're unsure, okay, go back a step, go through 12, 13, 14, 11, 12, 13, 14. Get your skills up and then jump into this. Okay. question 18, 19 and 20. We'll go over things like this on Thursday, okay? It's when they start putting a wee story behind it and you need to extract the data, okay, and put it in an equation form, okay? So don't worry about this tonight or the next couple of days. We'll look at that more on Thursday, because they do that a lot with simultaneous equations. They like to put a nice wee story together, okay, and you need to extract the data and we put it in an equation. People find it quite tricky to do, okay. I quite like them, but people sometimes find it quite tricky to see exactly what they're trying to pull together. So don't look at that. We'll look at that on Thursday. But have a right good bash at 15, 16, and 17. That handout I sent you tonight, let's have a wee look. We'll have a wee go at that. So these are past paper questions. Okay, so solve algebraically an equation. Okay, so they're very similar to the questions, these questions, okay. No harder, no easier. Okay, again, we need to clear everything away from that bracket before we can deal with it. Okay, so that 12 needs to come across, that 6 needs to come across, tidy up the left-hand side, and then deal with the bracket, okay, and tidy it all up. Take it step by step, okay. So have a bash at that as well. Okay, so your skills should be good enough for that. Solve algebraically. Here's an interesting one. Okay, so we'll give you the first few steps to this, but here's a divide by a negative, so it would flip. Okay, so this is just a handout. So this is the second inequality question. Okay, let's have a wee look at this together and we'll just make sure. Okay, so I'll just write it down. 11 minus 2, 1 plus 3x. Oh, can't draw a triangle. 39. Okay, let's have a wee look. Okay, so there's quite a lot going on here. And what I'm saying, focus on everything outside the bracket first. So first thing we want to get rid of. Okay. Remember our rules. We're just following BODMAS, but in reverse. Okay, so remember BODMAS is just how we solve equations. Okay, when we're rearranging equations, we're just doing that in reverse. So we're starting at the right-hand side of BODMAS and we're moving to the left. So the first things we want to move across are these add and subtracts. That 11. Okay, so we want to move that 11 from left-hand side over to the right-hand side. Nothing happens at this stage with the symbol in the middle. Okay, so on the left-hand side, we're going to be left with 2. Okay. 39 minus 11 is 28. Okay, so everyone comfortable there. Now here's where people, especially in the exam condition, would trip up. Okay, we then move that -2 across. Okay, so going back up to our BODMAS, remember any add and subtract. Any add or subtract, we're moving that first. Then we look at any divide and multiply. Okay, we'll look at that second. So we're taking that -2 and we're taking that across. Because it's a negative, that sign in the middle has to flip. Okay, because on the right-hand side now we need to divide by a negative, that symbol now flips. Okay, so we're left with the left-hand side like that. That symbol now flips to -2. Okay, so that's a really tricky one. Okay. Remember, there's nothing now outside that bracket, so there's nothing interfering or affecting that bracket. So I'm just going to remove that. symbol stays the same, that becomes negative 14. Back to the answer a second. Oh, okay. That expression on the left hand side. Now we start again. Okay, so we're moving all the adds and subtracts over. So that 1 gets moved across, it becomes a negative. Dx, okay, then 14 minus 1. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Sorry, I'll put that back up. Did the last steps quite quick there. Okay. So 3x is greater than negative 14, negative 1. That 1 moves across. Okay, then you're negative 15 over 3. It's negative 5. Okay. So that just did that one just to make sure that you don't get caught out with this. Okay, so have a wee go at that one. Don't look at the answer, write it out. Have the answer beside you, put it away, flip it over, and try and just go through that and just make sure that that symbol, you're changing it at the right time. Okay, where you understand where that changes. Okay, so that'd be quite a good one. Solve the equation we did. Okay, that's straightforward. Okay, so see that answer there? See what I was saying earlier with the equal sign? Okay, we could have 5 equals x or x equals 5 and it's same balance. Okay, just be careful with this sign. Okay, so you'll get left with this when you tidy it all up. Okay, 5 greater than x. If you then went to change that to x on the left hand side and your number on the right hand side, so it's just in a nice tidy format that we're used to. Okay, just remember that that symbol has to follow you. Okay, so 5 has to be greater than x. Okay, so if you were to move that x to the other side, just be careful what that symbol tells you. Okay, so just that would be a silly mark to lose in the exam. For the simple case, you don't actually need to do it. Okay, you'd just be doing it to tidy things up. Okay, so just be careful with that. That'd be a good one to have a wee go at just for that. This question here is similar to the ones that has a wee story behind it. You're looking at something and you're extracting the data. Now we could do it, but just miss that one out. Okay, so don't do that one if you're going through any of these. Okay, just miss that one out. That inequality, okay, that'd be quite a good one because you've got that negative sign there. Okay, so just be aware of that negative sign when you're tidying that up. Likewise, you've got a negative sign. So there's quite a few in that handout I gave you to get your teeth into. Your answers are there. If you don't have it, if you have issues and you can't see where everything's coming from, okay, give me a wee shout and we can start Thursday's session maybe by looking at a few of these questions. Okay, but have a right good stab at them. Okay, we should have the skills to do them. It's just that wee extra flip. Okay, so that's the ones in the handout I gave you. In here, there's some good ones as well. Okay, remember the answers at the back. Let's see if there's anything. Yeah, 15, 16, 17 are sort of exam format questions. Okay, that's page 14, 15, 16. Okay, guys. I won't add to that. I won't start anything else. Okay. Have a wee bash at them yourself. If you are having issues, drop me a wee message and we can start by looking at them, going through a couple of those format ones, okay, with the brackets and things like that. All right, so if you're having issues, have a good go at them yourself, try and work it out. If you can't, drop me a wee message and we'll start Thursday doing it, okay? But I won't add anything to that. Any questions before we head off?